everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back.
It's Q&A, 37th Q&A.
Is it 37th? Okay.
Yes.
This question about the pyramids, what Daskalo said about the pyramids. When I was there in Egypt, climbing around the pyramids, the conventional wisdom was they have never found an important burial in any pyramid in Egypt, and especially the main ones. But Aki had found something where in Saqqara, they had found a mummy. So I'm going to look at that. I hadn't seen that when we talked last time. And Daskalo says about Saqqara, see, the Egyptian language really has a lot of the original language in it. So the pyramid called Saqqara really was the original language. And the original language, Sa, as it is in India right now, it means truth. Saqqara. Ra was the name they gave God, and Ka was an expression. So Saqqara meant the truth is God's expression. And just like the word Africa, Af-ra-ka, again, Ra, God, Af is here. So Africa means the pleasure of God is here. So all these words from these ancient Egyptian things, they actually had really deep meanings. And we don't think of them that way now, but they did at that time.
Yeah. The Great Pyramid in Giza, as we already answered, it was used for the initiation because it's a device of the fire, means all levels of the mind vitalities. But its main purpose is so. But some of other pyramids were used as the tomb for the king or other people because it has energy in it. So some of them, but not the Great Giza Pyramid. That was our answer.
And the other thing Daskalo said about pyramids in general, that when Hierophant was being initiated into the order of the Hierophants in High Egypt, ancient Egypt, as you follow the seminars, you know that we follow the labors of Hercules, which are not myths, but metaphors of initiations. And certain places in Egypt, like Hierophant, I think was one of them, the initiates, this was back when there was a connection between the Greeks and Egyptians, they would do these labors of Hercules, but they would go into a small pyramid, and the master Hierophant stood behind them and directed their visualization of these particular labors. So you might think when you're doing some of the labors of Hercules, try to imagine, standing in a small pyramid with the master Hierophant behind you, initiating you into these things. Because every one of these 12 labors of Hercules is an initiation of itself.
Okay. Shall we start?
Let's go to Sarah's question. You mentioned that we are now going through difficult times, and I notice that 2 highly evolved souls that I know of left this mature world in the last few months. Wouldn't people and the earth benefit from them staying, strengthen the positivity and humanity during these times? Yeah, but it's it's a very complicated thing because we are going through a lot of things, and there's a lot of people passing over right now. So sometimes people are taken to the other side to help the newcomers come in. So don't think of they're abandoning the process here during this difficult time. Okay.
And if okay, that's all you want to say? Okay. If they are self-realized, very high advanced, very advanced, then sometime it's easier for them to work on this dimension because they don't have there's no limit, physical limit to activate something. So for them, if they are really advanced, for them it's much easier and powerful to work on this dimension, from the other side.
So the next question is from Laura.
Hi, Laura. before that, Sarah, thank you for your question. And hi, Laura.
Hi, dear Daniel and AKI. It's been happening more and more that before I'm asleep, I am beholding very vivid, light-filled images, which I've been trying to relax into while exploring a little before I lose consciousness. Last night, I found myself in this glowing hobbit house made of orange, gold, pink light with flowers made of light. It was so beautiful. I woke myself up, dang it. Any more thoughts on things to try to go deeper? More awake while you're more relaxed? Should I say a prayer or invite my angel or guide to be there? I feel like I've asked you this before, but I guess I'm a slow learner. Love you. Yeah, you should invite your angel or guide to help you in there. But the key thing is that I found, don't get too excited about it. Sometimes these things are really exciting, and you get excited and you lose the connection with it. So just try to stay real calm and centered, and just allow the thing to unfold. Let it show you what it wants you to do, and don't try to direct it. This is one of these we don't want to try to direct. Yeah. And of course, asking for your angel's presence to help you properly understand what you're seeing is a very good thing. The Hobbit House, I don't know about the Hobbit House. I like it though.
Oh, that's cold. The colorful,
Yeah, the fact that you see the
colorful.
flowers of the light, that's what they are. Everything on the psychical plane on the other side emanates its own light. So it doesn't have to be hit by
Yeah.
a sun or something. It's
Yeah.
self-illuminated. So you are seeing correctly. You going to say something?
Yeah. That's all? Okay. Yes, Daniel mentioned some of them, which I want to say. In our practice, Lola, we repeatedly say using willpower, or we use the word observation, or we use the word concentration. And so those are very important key. So, and also the word I-ness, as your I-ness, observe everything. We repeatedly say this word, right? So once you have an amazing experience, as Daniel says now, whatever, how wonderful experience happened on you, just once it happens, calm down and stop, think, or even feel. Of course we feel, we get excited, but try to be calm as best as you can, and make yourself an observative state as your I-ness, and observe everything, calming down your excitement. I can understand it, once it happens. So beautiful, so amazing, wow! But and when you start to think, oh, what is the other? Then your vibration goes down. So once it happens, my advice is calm down your excitement and make yourself observative mode as your I-ness and observe everything. And after that experience, when you come back to your body, just create a diary or put a note what you experienced. And after that, you can meditate on it. If you are very advanced in introspection, you can memorize. You can go back to your experience and try to understand the detail of which you experienced. So in that way, you can understand it. And once you see the beautiful color, in the other world, the color comes out from each, how can I say?
Psychoanalytical evidence.
Yeah, you will experience, the color is coming from each kind of molecules, like cells. So we see the colors are different. And in the higher state, we see the color much different way. Once it happens, again, calming down the excitement, of course, please don't hold the fear. Oh, what is this experience? Then you will immediately pull back to your body. So once it happens, just make yourself this state and send the archangel of that color your love, just love and appreciation. Then your heart will open and connect with them, and you will receive some experience, but don't analyze at that moment. Just thank you for sharing your experience.
This is from Daniela. Hey, Daniela.
Hi, Daniela.
She's living in Bulgaria now.
Oh, I can smell the roses. Bulgarian roses?
No, I don't.
They're
in the good.
Yes, famous. It's called damask roses.
Oh,
It's
Damascus.
beautiful. Damask roses.
Damask rose.
Yeah, it's beautiful smell. Oh, hello, Daniela.
So she's saying, I was doing the 5-star meditation from the last workshop. Is it possible to send me a picture of that cool board
Yes.
Aki was using to explain the deep connections of the star? What are the meanings of the 6-pointed star? Using all this information in the meditation has very strong effects on many levels. I'm so grateful for your work and feel blessed to knowing you both, brother and sister. Love. Okay, so yeah. First, I'll just say a couple of things. There's so much meaning in the stars, right? And we engage with them. We use them as 2-dimensional objects, but sometimes we transform these stars into 3-dimensional objects, which means a 5 and a 6-sided pyramid. So there's different ways to engage with them, and there's so much symbolism in the stars. Of course, the 5-pointed star represents human beings. We have 2 arms, a head, and 2 legs. That makes the 5-pointed star. We have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 senses, 5 inner senses, 5 outer senses. So there's a great connection, great meaning in that, and it has to do with the human idea. The 5-pointed star is the symbol of the human idea, the human archetype. So the 6-pointed star is the same. It's got all kinds of symbolisms. And we put that here in the center, number 6 in the center, the 6-pointed star. But in the chest area, we have these other 2 points over the lungs and over the liver and spleen. And those, when you see a 6-pointed star, of course, the top and bottom one points go up and down. But the other 2 relate to those particular chakras. So there's we'll get into that one day. We'll give a much deeper account
deeper, yes.
on what to do and what it means and how to approach it. And they do have such powerful effects on you. Because ultimately, we put the 5-pointed star down the solar plexus, but in self-realization and in some of our exercises before self-realization, we bring that 5-pointed star up inside the 6-pointed star. Well, what's that mean? Well, I just said 5-pointed star is a symbol of the human being, the personality of man, right? Okay, well, the 6-pointed star is a symbol of the soul self. So seeing the 5-pointed star brought up into the 6-pointed star just is a symbol of self-realization, where the present-day personality comes and becomes one with the inner self in true self-realization. So there's just lots of meanings to that. But as far as getting a picture of the cool board, I'll leave that to Aki.
Yes, we will send you for the seminar attendant. We will send you the file to review what we learned. In the last seminar, yes, we did a 5-pointed star meditation exercise. But at the beginning, we learn to create five-pointed star around our body as the protection. But actually, five-pointed star has the meaning, of course, in it. And the first meaning of the five-pointed star, it symbolizes archetypal idea of man. Idea of man means a perfect shape as the human being. But also we have the meaning of five kind of normal five senses like eyesight and listening and smelling, tasting and touching. It's a physical one, normal five senses. And together with that, we have a higher five senses, which means what we call in general like a clairvoyant or clear audience, something like this. We have a higher. So in a word, five-pointed star has the meaning of all levels of five senses, and also idea of man. And this idea of man, perfect man, is how can I say, it's idea, it's there, but it's reflecting, it's representing five universal principles. We learn five arches in symbol of life, right? On the top of the triangle, there are five arches. That means five and mind principle, five principle of the mind. So according to this universal principle, idea of man is, then what we do in the exercise of the five-pointed star is to aim to reach to the perfect man. And the five principle, we call it the five virtue of Christ, because Christ is the perfect human being. Five virtues of Christ is truth, wisdom, love, and justice, and goodness. Sometimes we call it purity. So those are the five virtues of Christ. And those five virtues of Christ, as Daniel says at the beginning, our body, material body, is created exactly according to five-pointed star, this principle. That's why we have five fingers and five toes, and when we open our body, it's going to be like a Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. So we, in our material body, in our ganglia, those five virtues are connecting, relating to five ganglias in our material body. Not only the ganglias, it's connected to the five senses and five elements and five attributes of human beings like spirit, soul, intellect, mind, what we call mind, and heart, and the end of the willpower. So in the last exercise, in the last seminar, we practice five-pointed star, giving the meaning, as Daniel, you say, meaning to it. This is so important, giving the meaning and the symbol, and we try to attune with the meaning of the symbol, which leads us to express that nature. So by creating the shape of the five-pointed, the symbol, giving the meaning to it, we absorb the essence of five virtues, principles, through this symbol. So please continue to practice, to attune with the five principles of the universes. So once we can attune to this universal principle, then the power of the universal principle will return back to us. We absorb and express to be the perfect man. And relation to the six-pointed star, we will study deeper and deeper. We can't talk everything in this session, but usually six-pointed star exercise is very important and very powerful. But please we have to start with the five-pointed star exercise. We will explain in the seminar, but deeper, why. But we need to work on five-pointed star first and bring the point of the five-pointed star upright above our head. This is so important, especially right now in this era. We need to absorb the essence of Christ, five virtues, and bring the top of the five-pointed star above our head. And also, once we reach the self-realization, which means once we gain the perfect five-pointed star, immediately, automatically, we will given six-pointed star, as Daniel explained. Go in the six-pointed star, and we will be the perfect. So, don't worry about the six-pointed star. You can, if you want to practice it, please do. But first, please work on a five-pointed star sincerely. You will know why it's so important later.
And also the five-pointed stars associated with the mystery of the parable of the five foolish virgins and the five wise virgins. And the foolish virgins, they refer to these senses, the mundane five senses, and the super senses like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairnescience, and all the rest of them. So the five foolish virgins were the ones that burned up all their oil. They kept their oil burning, which just means that they wasting etheric vitality. And that's what happens to us with our five senses. In India, they call them the five murderers because they really murder us. They get us all caught up in this external world, and we miss the great value of the internal. So the five foolish virgins, should calm them down enough. They're very important, but we shouldn't look to them solely. There are these other higher senses that as we start to raise our consciousness will automatically start to come into play. And these are these five super senses. And, you'll find them anywhere through, probably even in this lifetime, through the next lifetimes, you're going to have little spontaneous experiences of them. And eventually you become fully mastered of them once you reach the end of the super consciousness phase of consciousness. But right now, just pay attention for when they happen. Sometimes they'll just pop in as they're just, Dasco says, super senses, it's like a super consciousness, like a sudden knowing. All of a sudden you just know something, and it happens to be absolutely right. You didn't read about it, somebody didn't tell you about it, but it comes to you. And this is just a little example of how these things start to unfold in you as you advance in the system.
Starting with the five normal senses in our material body, we develop and ascend to develop our ability to express the psychonoetical five senses, super senses, and then more and more we express and are tuning with, assimilating with the virtue of Christ, the five attributes as the human being, and we reach to the perfect man eventually. And at the end, I want to say many more things, but at the end, I really want to say something from the teaching. Teaching says, going to the temple or going to the church, it's okay. But please remember, since our material body is created according to this principle, so our material body is our church. So please treat your church like Father Yohanan said in the Revelation, the churches are in our bodies. So please maintain your material body well, like your church.
It is. It's the temple of God.
That's right. For the spirit.
Okay, Jonas is asking, he's saying, lately, many believe the apocalypse will happen soon, and Jesus will return. Apocalyptic thinking has been happening for centuries, so it's not new. Some say he will return in a physical body, and some say his return is in a subtle form. Many experience Jesus in a subtle form, even though Jesus seemed to preach different theologies. My first spiritual teacher told me he met Jesus in the physical form. I read reports of advanced yogis who say the same thing. I know there are multiple fake Jesuses, both physical and subtle. What's the opinion about Daskalos about his return? Well, I'll just stop with that one right there. His opinion, as many people's opinion, that it's not going to be physical. The second coming of Christ, I mean, just think about it. If he came again, those evil people in power would not want the truth to be known. So what would they do? They would kill him again if he came physically right now. And maybe they would electrocute him, and maybe future followers would wear little electric chairs around their neck. I don't know. But the point is, man is not really ready as a whole for Christ to come. So the second coming, according to Daskalos and Yogananda and all these other people, is that when Christ comes to you. It's when you receive your Christ consciousness. And now, obviously, that's not going to happen on the same day for everybody. That's not going to happen in the same century for everybody. So these are things that are going to happen, and as the mass, as a race of mankind on this planet starts to awaken, there'll be people who have these self-realizations. Self-realization is Christ consciousness. So Christ is going to come in us. And of course, it's in the subtler form. So that's what Daskalos says. And then you're saying, knowing who the real Jesus is problematic for me. Others are Celtic in their knowing, on their perspective only, accept Jesus as he who validates the theology of their cult. I resonate mostly with Daskalos' teaching, but I'm not especially cultic. I like theologies of many Christian mystics. I don't even know why I resonate mostly with Daskalos' teaching, as most of what he says I've never experienced. As I don't have my own experience, I only can parrot his words. How can I improve my discernment about what the true teachings are for me? Well, you say you don't know, but some of this stuff, don't you feel like you already knew it? When you learn it again as a personality, don't you feel like, wow, I feel like I know that. That's not actually totally new to me. A lot of people report this because the truth of the teachings is already in our nature as our divine nature. So it's really more like we're not really trying to find it, we're trying to uncover it, to realize it, to recognize it. And that's what happens in this system. It starts to just, I don't know how to say it in another word, it just starts to dawn on you. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're probably not confused about it. You have this realization, oh yeah, I believe that's true. I've never had the experience so much, but I resonate with what Daskalos says, and it resonates with something already in me. That's a sign. If it's resonating something deep within me, you may not know the details, but the principle of the thing is not new to you. That's just a sign you're accessing what's the hidden knowledge already within you. I think I got that.
Okay.
Well, discernment, how can you clarify the discernment? Discernment's a very tough thing. It's a very necessary thing for us to do. And so we have to discern. There's because a lot of people say, oh, this is the greatest teaching ever. And you go there and you try, it doesn't work for me, right? So listen to that inner guidance, the thing that resonates with you, the thing that you recognize in yourself, even if you don't know the details, like I said. And you'll discover over time as you start to live with a lot of these, you'll realize that's how your discernment is developing. Also, if someone tells you something and it's different than your own direct experience, you can say, well, no, I know it's not that way. So it's in some way, it's the same kind of thing. This inner knowledge is ours. It belongs to everybody. No one has more than anybody else. Some people have more access to it right now at this point in their evolution, but what's there is the same for everybody. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, inner knowledge. Yes, that's right. Hello, John. Jonah. Sorry. Hello, Jonah. Yes. First of all, Daskaru said Christ never left. Please meditate on this word. And in the teaching, it says Christ is like how can I say? Christ is absolute self-aware consciousness of all holy monad. Can you imagine that? Absolute self-aware consciousness of all holy monads. Once we self-realized, we reach to the self-conscious, super-conscious self-awareness. Once we reach that level, even the first level of self-realization as the permanent personality, we will gain a super-conscious self-awareness, which is everywhere. We can spread our consciousness everywhere, omnipresence, and we can do whatever archangels can do. The first level of the self-realization. But the Christ level is much beyond the scale. All of this holy monads, absolute self-aware consciousness, which means Christ is everywhere. As Daskaru said, he never left. Physical body, as Joshua Emmanuel Christ, no physical body, but the consciousness is everywhere. And then, we have a beautiful meditation in the esoteric practice. If you like, I would like to tell you. Where is it? It's at the end of the esoteric practice. I can't find it now, but it's at the end of the esoteric practice, a scene prayer. It's so beautiful. Yes, this prayer is this exercise is which Christ gave his 70 disciples to meditate on life before they go to preach or before they go to their service. Christ gave this exercise to his 70 disciples. And in that exercise, in that practice, he says he's everywhere. He's even the eyesight in us to see something. And he loves us all the time. So please take a look at this exercise and meditate on it. So he is everywhere. He never left us. And as Daniel says, what we are doing to seek the truth, as a researcher of the truth, it's not like finding something, finding God in the outer world or whatever. No. Everything is already in us. Christ is in us. And even in our eyesight or whatever we do, even he says he is the breath which we make each time.
Breath.
And breath. And also heartbeat, saying I love you. So what we need to do is to reach that level of self-awareness and consciousness to experience it. So we don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to find anything to a very far place. We don't need a master. Our master and the teacher is ultimately our guardian angel and our real self. But we have to raise our realization to that level to really experience and feel so. This is the point. So, second coming of the Christ is not like finding some phenomenon where somebody is doing, maybe somebody, but Jonah, you are Christ. Christ's consciousness is already in you. And my Christ consciousness in me already. Just what we need to do is unfold, getting rid of unnecessary things and cleanse our present-day personality. Then it automatically shine as a Christ consciousness. This is the second coming of Christ. And our real self already knows everything. So what we are doing is just like remembering what we already have, but we forget temporarily. We just remember, that's why. Now back to your question, as Daniel answered, when we experience something, very beautiful things resonating to us, we feel like, I already know this. We feel that way because it's here. Everything is in us. So when we experience kind of dear one, we really feel at home. And if it's right teaching, you asked us the question, how can we discern it's right teaching or not? First of all, we feel like, we feel familiar with that. And we feel like we already know it. The feel at home makes us kind of feel warmed, the loving feeling. On the other hand, if it's not the real one to us, we feel like something off, or we feel like our blood current is going backward, like something weird. So we can discern in that way. But the real one is always like resonating us all the time. It's just like a fire in our heart. Once we put the fire in our heart, of course we will experience so many hardships and tests and trials. But whatever happened on our pathway, sometimes we feel like, I can't walk anymore farther. But when we cry a lot or fall down for a certain period, then we will find our fire in our heart is still burning. So in that way, true teaching, true message, true principle never extinguished. So please try. We hope you will find true teaching for yourself.
John's asking, did Daskalos ever give teachings on the best techniques for dying? For example, to go to the light or not, or at the moment of death to be aware of the top of the head or the pineal gland or the heart center, or what to expect after the death state. Did he ever comment on the Egyptian or Tibetan Book of the Dead? He never gave any real specific techniques, concentrating on the top of your head or anything like that. His was the thing, this happens automatically. It's a completely safe mechanism to die. And he didn't do it because he knew, this is my opinion, he spent most of the time trying to help us understand what was the thing that we could do while we're alive that would put us in the best position when we crossed. Not so much the technique as you go, but what is it that's going to really place you in the other world? Now, the Hindus say, oh, well, if if you think about a piece of fruit, when you die, you're going to be reincarnated as a fruit fly. Well, that's not true. But the Tibetan Book of the Dead kind of did a different thing. They had a book, and as the person was dying, the monk would read the book to them, and he would read the highest level first, and then come on down. And the idea was that the person would resonate with one of those planes and then be able to contact it through that method. But the reason Daskalos is telling us, work on your anger, work on your humility, on your kindness, because once we get those things accomplished, once we improve ourselves at those levels, it creates a new tonality in us. Our vibration is a tone. And that vibration is the very thing that pushes you across to the plane you go to the next when you pass out of this world. So you can't go through life living like a jerk and then at the last minute do some sort of technique and then you're going to go someplace high. It's not going to work like that. It's your everyday life that places you in the other place. And that's what he wanted to teach us. That's why I believe he didn't speak about the other thing. Now, he lots of stuff after the death state, way too much to go in here, but it's much better, right? It's much better. It's much easier. You don't have to go to work unless you're caught in the illusion that you have to go to the work. But everything's much nicer, it's much brighter, it's much easier. You feel much closer to your inner self. The higher you go up on the other side, and psychically or noetically, the more you feel close to your real self, the higher you go. So, there's just lots of stuff. He's talked about that. We can maybe do that in another class too. Did he ever comment on the Egyptian Book of the Dead? Well, it so happened he did. This was back, I think he might have been in his 30s. It was a long time ago. This Egyptologist came to him and he said, we have these photographs of these Egyptian plates, but no one's been able to translate them. And they had heard Daskalos was all about ancient Egypt and spoke the language. So they said, can you translate this? He said, okay. So they gave him 14 different photographs of these Egyptian carved plates that had what we now call the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It really wasn't called the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It was called the Book of Agni or something like that. It was about a soul's passage out of his body in through the other planes and what he was going to encounter and what he needed to be prepared to do and say during these places, during this transition. So they leave him with the photographs, right? And so he's working real hard. It takes him like 2 weeks. Many, many pages he wrote of this. And they come back and he said, well, here they are, and this is what it is. And he said, I made a correction to this one point. And the Egyptologist was offended. Who are you to make changes to the Egyptian Book of the Dead? He said, I wrote it. Now, the Egyptian Book of the Dead had been written on for thousands of years, but he was the last person to write on it. And it was during the incarnation with Pharaoh Akhenaten and the Symbol of Life. And you can tell this because this is the first place in the Egyptian Book of the Dead where they mention Atan instead of Amun-Ra. Because in that lifetime, him and Pharaoh Akhenaten established the one true spirit God religion and they called the god Atan, which just means the incomprehensible. It's like the power behind the sun. It didn't really represent the sun. It represented the life force coming through the sun. So they went back and they published a book. And he said, they never said who translated this stuff for them. So the reason they call it the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because it's very similar to what the Tibetans wrote about this guy passing over and what he's going to encounter. And in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it does the same thing. And you'll notice, if you read it, that there's some very important evocations the departed is supposed to say to, I don't know, what's called the gatekeepers, to these higher intelligence that you encounter after you pass over. And if you look at the Symbol of Life book, it's very much the same. He's got 7 incantations or evocations that we say as we move up the chakras or up the paths and centers in the symbol of life. So it's very, very similar. I suggest you study both on that one.
Yep. I can't say if it's a technique or not, but we always practice introspection and try to find I-ness in us, right? Then once we live in our daily life in introspection mode as I-ness, we observe all kind of events or what is happening in our daily life. Then eventually, even if we pass on or getting out of our body, we can hold this kind of conscious state, whatever happened on our state. So even in our body, in the material body or out of the body, we can hold our I-ness, we can hold our consciousness consciously as our I-ness. So this is one of the big aim of why we practice introspection and observation. Once we can handle this kind of nature, divine nature in us, then even if we pass on, we can hold this consciousness. But to be honest, we have to be very advanced to make it possible. Usually, when we pass on physically, when we transit to the other dimension after the material death, most of people will sleep. And Daniel mentioned the toning, depends on the vibration or vibration. We will wake up in the resonating psychonoetical plane in the psychonoetical world. This is how it's gonna happen. So, but as a preparation, in a sense, if we do observation and introspection daily, sincerely, we are already preparing for the conscious out-of-body experience, and also when we experience physical passing on, we are already preparing for it by doing that exercises. So as a conclusion, the world or environment which we are going to experience is the exactly same vibration which we are developing right now, which means if we are experiencing psychonoetical darkness or a kind of heavy burden in this dimension, it's going to happen. It's much lighter, but things are same. We will transit as it is. So please, let's practice to create heaven, kingdom of heaven. Let's try to experience the kingdom of heaven in here now. Then when we pass on, when we leave our material body, we will experience that. It's easy to say, but difficult to manifest it in here. But then let's try.
This one is from Alderbrad. Dear Daniel and AKI, I'm thinking of this for some time, but I don't know if it could be of any interest for other attendees of the podcast. Given that the holy archangels are always one with God, like pointed out by Dasclus and Franz Barton, they are of course free from making mistakes. Now, if they, for whatever reason, enter a special mission involving human incarnation, they obviously can do wrong. Like as Dasclus pointed out about the fire archangel who became John the Baptist, who had suffered from karma he created in a former human incarnation. Okay. Daedalus said, if I remember right, that a holy archangel who undergoes in a human incarnation, after that retains no memory of his incarnation. He could only look up within the Akashic principle, detached from his own self. Nevertheless, Francis Barton did not mention that the genii, archangels, of the sphere of Neptune are in charge of the spiritual evolution of every human being and every spirit throughout the whole system. So not only humans, though he never specifically mentioned the archangels themselves, do evolve. So is there really no kind of further growth happening with the archangels like John the Baptist that would prevent them from failing so badly on missions beyond their familiar spheres of keeping some lessons from this for whatever way, shape, or form? Well, there's a lot said in that question. Yes, an archangel is free of making mistakes. How Detzlo said, once an archangel incarnates through the human idea, comes to earth, now they're under the law of cause and effect. Before, they weren't under the law of cause and effect. They were one with God. They didn't make mistakes, right? So now here, they're under this law of cause and effect, and what they sow has to be received back. The consequence has to come. I'm not sure we can totally say that everything they did, it maybe looks like a mistake to us, is a mistake in the bigger sense. Maybe there's some other higher purpose that we can't see on earth. Why you're talking about Elijah, who cast down fire on the Romans or the soldiers who came to get him. I don't really want to comment on that. But whatever the deal is, even if he did it willfully, knowing he did it willfully, and knowing it was wrong, but it was going to serve this other purpose, they still have to take the karma of it. So, and I've never heard Daedalus say that the holy archangels who undergo human incarnations retain no memory of that. I've never found that myself. But you hit a very, very important part this last. So there's really no kind of further growth happening with the archangels. This is, I think, one of the most amazing things to me about this whole teaching and system. Everything is here for humans. The trees, they're not evolving. They're growing just exactly as they did 1 million years ago. Apes behave as an ape did millions of years ago. Archangels don't improve in their original condition because they're one with God. What could they improve with? Which means that this whole play, this whole drama that we're deep in, is only for our benefit. I mean, the trees don't get benefited, the archangels don't get benefited. Who gets the benefit of life on earth, life in the higher worlds? Well, it's only man. Which shows you that God's created all this for us alone to enjoy, but also to learn and get our lessons and eventually come back home more privileged than the archangels, because when we return back home, we will know what time is. You ask an archangel what time it is, they say now. That's all they can say, because that's all they know. But a human being can know now and outside of now, in what we call time. It's never outside of now, but we call time is in sequential movement of events, basically. So this is just an amazing thing, that all this, just think how much is going on. And they call this the worlds of illusion, which they are, full of illusions. But they are such important illusions for a human being to pass through so they come to the full understanding of how it all is, both in terms of non-duality of beingness, like the archangels enjoy, but also in the worlds of separation. We get to compare in a way that the archangels never have and never will. Now, I don't know, there are certain archangels, there are companion archangels that always travel with Christ. These are John the Baptist, John the Evangelist, Mother Mary. What? you're talking Mother Mary and
Those
Yeah,
are the,
yeah.
those are the people.
yeah, in the Catholic Bible, they still say Mother Mary was born immaculate. I mean, that's because she's from an archangelic order, as are the rest. So these guys always come with Christ. They always incarnate. And they always do the same thing on any planet because it's the same story going on everywhere. The details are a little different, but it's the same story. You know, this pure ray of God comes to a planet. He gets abused by the people that are of the dark side, let's say, and he overcomes it. And he proves the truth of what he's teaching. Now, a lot of people, a lot of masters have said, oh, we aren't the body. The body dies, we don't die. They all said that. A lot of them said that. But Christ was the only one who proved it by resurrecting his own body. So, let's leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Hello. Who is that? Albilad. Hello, Albilad. Even we are self-realized. If we are self-realized at the first level as the permanent personality, all of us will come back to help other human beings, and we will reincarnate to help other human beings. And once we reincarnate, after reaching self-realization, we will have the perfect psychonoetical body because we are self-realized, which means already we reached perfection to reshape our psychonoetical body. So we don't need to work on our own psychonoetical body to reshape, but to reincarnate to help other human beings. So even if even when we are self-realized, it happens like this. Then the archangels, as we learn many times, they never leave God. They are always at one with God, which means these people, Elijah, from the archangelic order, like Father Yohanan or Mother Mary, they are from the archangelic order. They are at one with God all the time. But they have a certain role, as Daniel says, like they are the kind of set, the team, to perform under the divine law. So beyond the perception or comprehension as the level of the present-day personality of us, they have a mission. That's why, like Elijah, in your question, he have used the fire, and he reincarnated as the baptism of John the Baptist. English, Japanese came up with John the Baptist, using water, balancing. It's not just compensating the karmic things which he had done. He just represented, showing us that the big teaching, the principle, when we have used the fire, when we use the pure fire element the negative way, in the world of duality, we have the expression of pure element as positive way or negative way. When we have to use the element, what's going to happen? But the Elijah, the Archangel Michael, itself doesn't mean violating the law and compensating the karmic. This is the very mundane way of thinking. But they are showing us the principle, what's going to happen. Otherwise, somebody asked about the transfiguration of the Christ, maybe last Q&A or maybe 2 times before. You know, on the Mount Tabor, you can take a look in the Christ book. On the Mount Tabor, Christ experienced the transfiguration. And when he recited Abund Bashmaya on the mountain, then thunder growled, thunder came, and the pillar of the swirling light of Elijah on the right side, and the left side of Moses came out. And his body, Christ's body, shines like a sun, unbelievably bright. If Elijah is very sinful to compensate his karma, then why Elijah shows up as the right pillar of the swirling light? So you know, and also Elijah already prophesied that Christ is coming. So they are the team representing, showing us the teaching and the principle of the universes. So it's not like what we feel about them. They are performing the perfect role under the divine plan to guide us. It's a good timing for us to really think, really meditate on the meaning of like Lucifer, Archangel Lucifer, or kind of making the bad role, evil role in the world of duality. But in the world of duality, we have 2 expressions, positive or negative, or positive or counter-positive. But beyond that duality, we always harmony. I express the gesturing this way, but it's not the above. It's not the physical like this. No, the entire harmony is prevailing in all duality, lower dimensions. So it's everywhere, without exception. We have to think about the meaning of the role of the evil, or meaning of the role of kind of negative, especially right now. And at the end, I would like to add, the scarlet is a symbol of life. It's not with the Kabbalah. You mentioned about Franz Burdon, but his symbol of life is not the Kabbalah. So it's addition, by the way, it's additional comment.
The other thing about Elijah sending down fire on these people that you were describing, they were soldiers sent from King Ahab and Queen Jezebel to get him. And why were they getting him? What was his mission? His mission came to kind of put Israel back to rights, because it had fallen off the thing. And by the time it gets to King Ahab, they are worshiping, and they're causing Jewish people in Israel to worship the god Moloch, or Baal. Now this god was known for, they sacrificed their children to this god, burn them up alive, to get favors from the god. The ceremonies, the religious ceremonies, also had ritualistic prostitution in it too. So he's come to take down this false god, which Plato said was being worshipped on Atlantis. So for tens of thousands of years, they're burning little children up to this false god. And Ahab, being the king at that time, established the practices again for the people. So the people of Israel was going astray, so they sent him in to bust this thing down again. So he used fiery means, he used rough means to try to accomplish that. And fortunately, it worked. It worked. So, we can't totally judge him just on the outward appearance. We don't really know what his mission was and what he was allowed to do. Obviously, he could not have done this if God did not allow it. By the same token, these worshipers of Moloch could not have burnt their babies if it wasn't allowed by God. Now, interesting, right on the same month, March 2020, when the pandemic was established, the Pope had a statue of this bloodthirsty pagan god erected at the Colosseum. I think that's mysterious, myself.
Let's move on.
We're going to move on.
Let's move on.
Mario. Hey, Mario. How
Hello,
are you?
Mario.
He's asking, is it possible for you to share some thoughts about herbal and natural remedies the Dascalos gave to patients, ingredients, combinations, and purpose? Yeah, but let's take it from the big picture. This whole teaching and everything Dascalos did, whether it was a physical remedy like you're talking or a psychonoetical remedy, it's about vibrations. So he was constantly applying certain sets of vibrations to other vibrations he was trying to change. And it's the same true with herbal remedies. And it's like St. Francis' prayer. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is war, let me sow peace. Where there is unkindness, let me show kindness. So we apply the opposite to try to get rid of the thing that we don't want. So now when someone had an issue with needed some remedy, sometimes he would just suggest common kind of, what would you call them? Conventional remedies that the old timers did from what was around him. So he would often go up into the mountains to try to find certain flowers and certain things that he could combine and then give to the person that would offset their problem, their physical problem. And I'll tell you the one about me is I may have read this before, but I forgot it. But so one time I'm at Dascalos. I've been there many times, and I would go to Egypt very often afterwards. And I'd been there to Egypt 3 times. And this last time I went, I never before drank water or ate any fresh vegetables or fruits or anything, right? So not to get sick. But this one last time, I saw this falafel, and it looked so good. It had a little piece of tomato on it, and I ate it. And boy, got sick. And it just lasted for months and months and months. And then I ran across his remedy for it, which was, it's a long kind of thing. It's 2 parts. One is kind of like, it's like yogurt, tomatoes, cucumbers, and garlic. Another one was carob syrup and honey, and there's different ones. But he would pick one that would create a vibration that would kill the thing that was causing you the problem. So I went for months and months and months, and it was horrible. And then I'll try this, and then poof, 2 weeks it's gone. It never came back. So he did know what to do, but it's only because he knew the vibrations of the thing that was causing the problem that he could apply a counter vibration to. One, he had some simple ones, like if you get a wart, you pour tomato juice on it and then put cellophane tape over it and let it sit all night, and then you'd pull it off and the wart would come out. That's one of the little ones he did. But Okay, so...
Can I answer for that first?
Sure.
Maybe it's a different question. Yes, so he mentions vibration. I don't know the detailed recipe, how to make remedy things, but the good medication really changes the vibration of the etheric vitality. So it really works. Even the artificial one changes, medication changes, but the natural remedy changes the vibration of the etheric vitality in etheric double. So it really works. So he says vibration. We learn, healing work, creating a good creating a ball of light, putting our concentrated prayer in it, right? Elemental in it, right? It changes the vibration. It gives the vibration. Our intention, our will, put the vibration, create a vibration in it, right? So my advice is when whatever natural medicine, whatever you create a remedy, just put your intention, like the scholars did, like put your counter effect vibration in it, and give it to whoever you want to share.
The next part of the question is, with etheric breathing, are all forms of etheric vitality being accumulated? Yes. The etheric vitality is one thing, but it has these different natures or properties, and sometimes we refer to them individually as the ascetic ether, kinetic ether, all such as that. Now, there's only three that are available to our conscious use at this point in time, and that is the kinetic, enables movement. We can choose to move, so we're using the kinetic, mostly subconsciously. Feeling, we feel things. We feel feelings from other people. We feel emotion. That's the ascetic ether. That's a function of the ascetic ether. And the imprintive is one we can see. We see, close your eyes, you can see things. That's the imprintive ether at work. He's asking, do we need to do further meditative work such as breathing? You really don't need to do that. What you really need to do is just the basic practices. All these visualizations, we're using the kinetic, we're moving the energy through our body, we're feeling the energy move through it, and we're trying to see it as a colored light in us. So just work with those. And if you get those, once you become mastery of those, you immediately get access to the creative. The creative used to be in people's hands, like Elijah, who used it to bring down fire. But it's been taken away, and it won't be returned until the archangels will know that we're not going to use this. They know us perfectly, so they're not going to know if they're not going to reveal the secrets of it until they know the person they're revealing it to won't use it to harm, but will only use it for healing. That's the only purposes of these higher aspects of vitality, etheric vitality. And he says, regarding the creative ether, how is the creative ether released in human activity? Well, sex is the common one for most people. That's subconscious to them. They're not consciously doing it. But there's even meditations. You can do a lot of great work and feel the creative ether if you train yourself to do it. But I'll tell you how it's mostly released. And that's, when I say released, I mean wasted. Because when you feel stress, when you feel anxiety, that burns, that's like a bonfire of your creative ether. And you'll notice when people get really sick, a lot of times they've overused the ethers, right? They're weak in the ethers, but nothing takes creative ether more, drains it more, releases it more than feeling stress and anxiety. So that's another reason not to allow yourself to fall into stressful conditions. And Aki?
Okay. Mario, please don't think of each functions of ether as a kind of separate things. We have an etheric vitality, and the etheric vitality has many functions. We sometimes call it the functions, but sometimes call it like nature. Any other word?
Nature, function, property.
Properties, yes. It's one thing. Just like one thing which has different aspect, nature, property, or functions. Please think of it that way. So likewise, archangelic work in each world, it has a dominant archangel in each world, but they all work together, in a perfect harmony. So likewise, the same thing happens in etheric vitality. So in our practice, in some exercise we just visual, which means we use imprinting ether, but we also use aesthetic ether and kinetic ether too. So we have a specific exercise which focus on each functions of ether, but always everything is work together. Needless to say, the higher nature of aesthetic vitality. It's always here. We are kind of working on that. But which one we are mainly working on, it's like depends on the exercise. And the next question, how is creative energy released by human activity? Yes.
No, it's there. I just we're running out of battery, so
I see. Okay. I'll answer as quick as possible. This is very important. Human being used to be able to handle the creative ether, but we are deprived because we abused it. So we train ourselves like kinetic, aesthetic, and imprinting ether again and again. Please listen carefully. Using exercise, practicing exercise, using those three functions of ether, we try to develop and master to handle those functions of ether aspect of aesthetic vitality together with holding introspection, together with cleansing our present-day personality. This is the most important thing. We can't aim or we can't go higher state just by developing consciousness, the ability or power. We have to cultivate or unfold our self-awareness. So the balance of the self-awareness, logoic self-awareness, and the holy spiritual consciousness, this balance is so important. We need both to cultivate. Otherwise, if we just focus on gaining the power, just try to gain the creative ether, yes, we can do it by exercising the kundalini things, just focusing on that. But the result will be miserable because we don't develop our self-awareness. Our aim is focusing on material purpose or kind of not divine, mundane purpose. If we use the same power for the mundane purpose, we will fail and we will increase the number of incarnation to pay off this kind of karma. So once we practice these functions of ether in our practice, together with introspection, cleansing our present-day personality, and slowly integrate those two aspects, logoic and holy spiritual, into one. Then one day, Holy Spirit entrusted, we will be entrusted by Holy Spirit, and then naturally creative ether flow through us.
and battery at the same moment. So I'll say adieu.
Yes. Thank you for many beautiful questions.
Yes,
Yes.
good questions.
Yes.
Have a great time ahead.
Yes. God bless you. See you next